Hello, this is Nancy Smith Mattox on WYTV 7 in Charlotte, broadcasting for Shine Your Light Radio Ministry in Little Rock, Arkansas. So excited today to be with you. We have a very special guest that's going to share a lot of great information with us. She's helping people. And what we say at WYTV 7 is if we help one, we're doing our job. WYTV 7 is a nonprofit, and we do a lot of community events for financial literacy and literacy. So without further ado, let's get started so my guest will have plenty of time to share her information with us. My guest today is Kristen Newsom from Murrieta, California. And I'm just so excited to have you today, Miss Kristen. Thank you so much for agreeing to take some time and share with us and the world what you do. Miss Kristen is a founder and executive director of My Sister's Keeper Success Institute. And that particular nonprofit helps young girls 10 to 17 find their way in life and let them know how important they are. It was founded in 2017, and it works to remove barriers that keep girls from exploring career possibilities in STEAM and STEM through the following programs: engage girls in the STEM program, career exploration, encourage pursuit of growth industries, eliminate the gender wage gap, which is a true big deal, and address gender and racial bias. So we're gonna just run through this and let her share some with you. First of all, Miss Kristen, share a little bit about your testimony and what got you into this.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for inviting me to be with you today. My testimony is probably one that many have shared, in that as young women, and for me particularly as a young woman of color, there were many times in my life where I doubted if what was inside of me was going to be able to be fully realized. As a woman of faith, my faith was attacked. You know, my belief in myself and who God created me to be. And often what we find is that when girls doubt themselves and their capabilities, this can lead to them playing really small in the world. And for me, as a young girl, I remember wanting to be an architect, an attorney, and a psychologist. And I don't know how I was going to fit all of that into 24 hours a day, Nancy, but in my mind, this was what I wanted. And what it was the blueprint, the God-given blueprint that was on the inside of me to build, to connect with people, and to be an advocate. My not understanding how all of that was going to come to fruition became very overwhelming. And it caused me to doubt myself a lot and to just basically write off that little clue that God was giving me on the inside, that these were the pathways that He had made for me. But what we find is that when there's no one to intervene in that case, when there's no one to speak to that young woman and say, if this is your heart's desire, if this is what inspires you, God has a plan. It can often cause us to turn off that God-sized DNA on the inside of us and shrink and play very small in the world. And we all know He's created us for wonderful things, and that's really not His purpose for us. So that inspiration started very young for me, wanting to be, I guess, an advocate for girls who felt like I did. Years later, I had my own daughter, who is the joy and the light of my life. She's married now with her own family, but my little girl, from the time she was a little girl, was fascinated with science. She understood those complex ideas. It wasn't difficult for her. I encouraged her. We talked a lot about purpose. We talked a lot about the destiny that was on her life, and that was simply a clue that would lead her to fulfilling that destiny. She later went on to college and pursued a degree in biology. and found that in many of her classes and in many of her experiences, she was led to feel that she didn't belong. You're a girl. Why? Many times she was the only girl in many of her classes. Why would you think that this would be something that you could pursue? And I watched that little girl that I had known from the beginning of her very life, who had always been so elated and excited about science, begin to doubt herself and begin to cower a bit and begin to question her ability to handle these complex subjects. And it just led me, Nancy, to the advocacy part of me stood up and said, no, there has to be a voice for these young women who have felt this their whole life, but are now feeling that maybe they should question themselves. And so that really is what led me to begin My Sister's Keeper with a group of moms who also wanted their daughters to see their possibilities and to endeavor to study and see where the paths would lead them.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, I'm a product, I was born in 1953, so I came up in the work world where women weren't really expected to work. And I had a very, very excellent career. I started out very, very young and was promoted and promoted. And finally, I had my dream come true when I became the CEO of a large credit union in the Southeast. But I was really excited about that. But I found myself doubting myself constantly, and I just had to keep, you know, pulling myself up by my bootstraps and just keep going, because in those days and times in the 70s, people didn't really think that women could run a financial institution, that they had what it take. And I tell you what, if it hadn't been for God leading me and telling me how to do this and making me do the right things, I would have never made it. But it was very successful. And when I retired 25 years later, it was one of the largest credit unions in Florida, as well as, you know, it just grew by leaps and bounds. And I really think it's just because, you know, I had that will to just keep going, but it was easy to get discouraged. And what I see now, Miss Kristen, is that people, young girls don't have a whole lot of self-confidence. And I can understand that because that's where I came from. I'm sure you came from that too. But I just think this is an excellent program because they're awfully intelligent and they just need that little boost. So what does a girl in your program get to experience?
The experience, Nancy, is honestly the best part. The experience starts in the heart. We strive to create a culture of sisterhood and celebration. One of the first things that we do when we get together with this group of girls is to establish ground rules in how we're going to be with each other and the kind of energy that we're going to bring in the room, the kind of attitude and heart that we're going to bring. And so we work very diligently to create a culture of acceptance and a culture of sisterhood, in that even the title of our organization, My Sister's Keeper, Success Institute, we want to create that sense of responsibility to care for each other. So that first and foremost is what girls have described that is unique to other programs they've been involved in. Growth mindset is another big issue for us. We are of the belief that everyone has the potential to learn, to grow, and to be excellent. And so growth mindset sort of takes apart, Nancy, probably the philosophy that both you and I were raised with, that there are some kids who are smart and there are other kids who are not. And the growth mindset proposes that every child can learn. We have to look at how we are learning. We have to understand that learning is not just repetition, but it's actually being able to build on ideas, to engage curiosity, questioning, inquiry. All of these things are a part of learning and really make for a richer experience. We also are of the mindset that not having the correct answer is not the end of the world. We actually look at incorrect answers, and I don't say being wrong, because that carries a value and a judgment with it that we don't want kids to have in their learning. But when there's an incorrect answer, this is the starting point for discovery. And in the growth mindset, that's how we look at it. So we really truly believe that, and we have not been disappointed. We've had children who have struggled with math, who, when it's posed to them just as a puzzle to figure out versus something that you'll never overcome, are able to get progress. And so we are very, very much entrenched in that mindset in our program. And then finally, the mentoring. We bring in women who are willing to serve as mentors in our program, who are in various types of industry. We have women in engineering, women in medicine, women in technology, women who are students, women who are actually working as professionals in the industry. And the point of it all is to say to a young woman, here am I, and if I could do it, you can do it. And to just make the mountain of that success seem so much more attainable when there's someone who can walk you through the how I did it. There's someone who can encourage you, someone who can kind of demystify the unknown, because what we don't know tends to be pretty scary. So when these women come as mentors, they talk about the kinds of problems they solve, in a day of work. We had a wonderful, wonderful mentor from Northrop Grumman Aerospace, who, as a woman and a woman of color, is sort of a purple unicorn to be working
That's right.
in that field and doing so successfully for years, over 30 years. And so by bringing these women into the space with our girls, they're able to hear their stories. They're able to, most of them, ironically, ours is not, although we are not a Christian organization, everyone on our board of directors are women of faith. And what we find is that that's what we attract. We attract women who believe in something bigger than themselves, and they're able to share their journey. And it's just been powerful. It's been very inspirational for the girls to see women who came into their careers in the 70s, in the 80s, and have battled through when times were much more difficult, even though we're still in the war, but whose opportunities were much more limited, and yet they succeeded. So that has just been a wonderful component of our program, and being able to bring these mentors to the girls to help them see things that feel impossible, that they actually are possible.
Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful, because really they really don't have enough confidence now, and they're smart, they're very intelligent, and they get in these programs, but sometimes they think they're for the male species, and they're not. I mean, women can do that too, and the more mentors you have that you use that is an example of that, it makes them know they can make it too. So that's really, really exciting.
Nancy, I'm sorry. I just wanted to also, you make such a profound point. One of the things that makes our program unique is that we actually, even though we have a STEM and a STEAM focus, and STEAM is just the integration of the arts as a teaching tool for science, technology, engineering, and math. But we also involve the personal growth and empowerment component in our program. So you speak about the lack of confidence and the self-esteem that these girls have. There would be no way for us to be truly successful in these efforts without addressing those needs. Oh. And so we absolutely embrace that, and we interleave it into every aspect of our program, reinforcing that they, as their authentic selves, are enough. In the age of social media and technology, it's here to stay. It's not going to go away, but we have to show our girls that they are not defined by what is being posted on Instagram or what a friend is saying on Snapchat, that they're so much bigger than that, and that, every day we're having to remind them to speak that to themselves. The power of their own affirmations over their lives, to say it in a prayer, or to say it as an affirmation, something that they say daily, that I am not limited by social media constructs. I am better. I am greater. I am a creation of God and built for great things. And so we are constantly addressing that, because you're so right. even in 2019, that we still battle with not feeling that we're enough, not knowing that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and what that really means, that we're made for great things. So, yes.
Well, I think that's really important too. It seems to be more so now. I know we had it tough in the 70s, but you know what? It seems that it's worse now, because eventually, if we worked hard enough, we got up earlier, we stayed later, we worked harder. And what happened, especially in my case, is my heart took over. My heart took over helping people. And you know, it's just a nurturing thing that women have that we can use to our advantage if we just open up our heart and let God lead us through it. Because that's really the secret to all of it, is everything is so mechanicalized now, and people think of that as being men stuff. But really, if the heart of the matter is when we get into that, is when things really, you know, start to, there's a lot of synergy and a lot of energy. And so I think that's great. So what do you want people to know about encouraging all youth to be their best?
I think, you know, two things, one of which you made a statement there about how people can project their biases onto others, and assuming that, well, a girl wouldn't be mechanical because she's a girl. She wouldn't be interested in engineering. Girls don't like that stuff. You know, or what does a girl have to do with science? That's too complex for them. You know, she'd be better off in hospitality or, you know, being an administrator. And I think that the one thing that those of us who were raised with particular roles that were put upon us, that this is what you do. I think that in this age where technology has brought us, that we have to be mindful of not limiting the possibilities of any child. And by that, I simply mean allow them to have the freedom to choose their path. So often without meaning so. I mean, I've had so many well-meaning people in my life who only wanted the best for me, who maybe spoke a word that was filtered through that bias that discouraged me from even trying. And it wasn't an intention, and it wasn't anything that was done maliciously, but I think at times we tend to filter through our own experiences. So be careful not to limit possibilities for young people. The other thing is to, if a child begins to speak about wanting to do something with their life that you're not familiar with, encourage exploration. One of the things that we do as a foundation in our program is help girls to explore the unknown, explore what you don't know. Someone once told me, if you look at life as a pie graph, the small sliver is what you know. The next size sliver is what you know you don't know. The rest of the pie is what you don't know you don't know.
That's right. That's exactly.
That gave me amazing perspective that it pays to be curious, because we don't know what we don't know, and the curiosity will lead you to knowledge and understanding. So we encourage young people to do that discovery rather than, and I've been guilty. I think we all have, well-meaning but guilty. I had a very artistic child, my son, very artistic. And I remember a conversation. Now, understand, I was born to a family of educators. And so, you know, you go to school, you get your degree, you stick to the structure. And my son, I remember once saying, well, you know, you want to be a graphic designer or something, but you can't, an artist, but you can't make money. You can't make a living. Well, you and I both know that is far from the truth.
Yes, it is, especially in this day and time.
Especially in this day and time. In the day and time that I had that understanding, maybe that wasn't the case, but the world is changing by leaps and bounds every day. So this is why be very mindful not to shut down a young person. Well-meaning, but be very careful of your words in that regard. So that's the one thing I'd like to share.
You know, you talk a little bit about social media, and one thing that really concerns all of us, especially here at WYTV7 and Shine Your Light, is this thing about bullying. We've had shows on it and people talking about it. We see posts every day on social media about children committing suicide because they were bullied. They're bullied on social media. I worry a lot about that with my grandchildren. They're 14 and 12 because they're little white-haired little boys, and that's not always a good place to be in. And one of them, the 14-year-old, is an exceptionally smart child. I mean, he's been offered a STEM program and everything, but I worry about them being bullied because, you know, they're still children, and they're a little bit shy and withdrawn, and they now the other one's a clown, the 12-year-old, and he'll do okay. But it just really is this social media stuff is really serious, and I think that we battle with that, and in the school system with the issue of bullying. And I think this program that you do would really help with a lot of that, because you're teaching a lot about, you know, teaching them to have the right mindset when it comes to that, because they just don't know, and they just get so desperate. So I would hope that you'd have a part of the program that will boost them up like that, which I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. You're so right. And it's, you know, it's a problem. I believe it always has been, but with the advent of social media, now you're able to pass information more quickly and more rapidly. And what used to take a few days for things to get around school now just happen in a heartbeat. Exactly. And you're right. You know, the hearts of our children are very much affected by this. And that is why it's so important for us to create that culture of community and sisterhood, because many of those children who unfortunately have harmed themselves out of just simple despair and not knowing what to do when bullied have had no one to turn to, or no one that they felt they could turn to. So our heart is to create a safe place for girls to know that they always have either an adult or a peer that they can come to and know that they're safe. They're safe to share. They're safe to share.
They don't really like to share that kind of stuff with their parents. I know my 12-year-old grandson, about 2 years ago, he was 10. He's kind of a bigger boy, you know, a bruiser, kind of like an athlete, a practical joker. But I picked him up from school several times, and one time I picked him up, it was by himself. His brother wasn't with us. And he said, Nene, somebody's bullying me. And I was like, excuse me? Because, you know, they don't want to tell their parents. I said, well, what happened, baby? And he said, well, my dad stops and gets me a drink in the morning on the way to school. And I get there so early because the parents are working. They drop them off early. And he said, and all of us and our buddies, we gather around and we just talk and play and we have fun. But he said, I put my drink up on the concrete stand. And he said, there's one boy that I play football with that comes by and knocks my drink off every morning. And I'm like, excuse me? Do I have to come up there to protect your drink? I mean, I kind of went in orbit. I mean, I said, well, baby, have you shared this with your parents? And he said, no, I haven't. And I said, would you mind if Nene shares it with your parents? And he said, that would be okay. Because he didn't want to admit to his father that someone was knocking his drink off and that he wasn't doing anything about it. Because he would get in trouble, of course. So anyway, I told his mother and father, and my son, he said, don't worry, Nene, we'll take care of it. And what they did is him and the football coach, the next time at practice, the football coach put them two boys head up against each other. So everything was legal, everything was perfect, but the little boy, you know, he basically got bullied back, only it was legal because it was on the football field. He never messed with him again. So these parents and these teachers have a great way of coming up with solutions if they know the problem, but they don't always know the problem, you know. So, but I thought that was an interesting story on bullying. And of course, I was about ready to go in orbit because, you know, nobody messes with our babies.
That's right. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about the program and how it's impacted your community. And I have a follow-up question after this. So.
Okay, great. Well, I think one of the ways that we've seen our impact the most has been in being able to share information with parents that they may not have been aware of. You know, our community here in the Murrieta-Temecula Valley is very much made up of commuters, people who commute to San Diego proper or commute to Los Angeles, Orange County. We're very busy, as I'm sure people are everywhere. Everyone's on the road, everyone's focused on other things. Sometimes we get so busy in life that we forget to stop and lift our head up and look around. And when it comes to being mindful about how are you helping your children with their career planning, their higher education. Higher education is a very big problem in America. It's very expensive for the most part. And it warrants mindfulness. It warrants thinking through. It makes sense to make sure that your child's choice aligns with who they are. You know, a lot of children do things because mom and dad tell them they should. They don't know what to do. They haven't been given the tools to make the decision or to even know how to go about making the decision. And in a lot of cases, parents aren't having the conversation. And it's not that they wouldn't, no one had it with them, right? So for many of us, we closed our eyes, we picked a major, or we closed our eyes and picked a job, and it paid the bills, and that was it. Now, as the rising cost of education is happening and the rising cost to live, just to live in Southern California, you have to make a pretty sizable income to live comfortably here. So you want for decisions to be made with that awareness and in essence to get the bang for your buck, right? So if you, the wonderful thing about technology, there are many ways for you to be gainfully employed without having to have a four-year degree. One of the programs that we are launching is a coding club that we're in partnership with the program, the international program, Girls Who Code. And Girls Who Code has very much empowered community organizations like mine to be able to set up these coding clubs all across your community. And it's teaching girls, coding is the fundamental language for technology. To understand everything else in technology starts there. And so we have that opportunity to offer those coding clubs at no cost for girls who are interested. This kind of thing has made a tremendous impact because parents now have a way to plug in their kids to learn these skill sets that are high demand skill sets for the technology age. In addition to that, you know, we're helping them with the reaction, being proactive, I should say, rather than reactionary to all of the changes that are happening in our world as a result of technology. We all know that automation is taking over. Many of the jobs that we know now as your lower paying entry-level jobs will be eventually phased out for robotics and automation. So what we want to do is raise the awareness level for parents to understand that even if your child's path is not the four-year college or university, there are things that you can do to align them, figure out what their interests and abilities are, and align them so that they are able to take care of themselves. They're able, you know, to build a career that actually has meaning in the world that we live in today.
And then I think they'll enjoy their you know, their role in life and all of that too. But we at WYTV7, we have a scholarship program that we have, and we also use a dynamic pay app, which will allow people to allows us to raise money for higher education for students. And what happens is we have an electronic pay company where some of the proceeds, when people sign up for it, they pay $25 and they can get gift cards and things like that. And then we get a small percentage, and then also the people that buy the app get a small percentage. So it helps them, but we're using our funds here at WYTV7 to help kids with higher education. So that's kind of exciting. It's kind of like the same thing. It really needs to be done, and it's a way for people to donate when they're purchasing things, which is super awesome. It's not really a direct donation to WYTV7, but it is a donation plan where we'll get a piece, and if we get 2 pennies off of every single one, that's going to wind up being, a lot of donations that we can help kids. So, but my second question was, are you going to go with this program nationally, or is it just in your community?
For now, Nancy, this program is a regional program. We are willing to serve within Southwest Riverside County here in California. Our ultimate goal would definitely be to take this program nationally. We have to have the right platform and the right supporters, the right sponsors, and with that, I'm certain that we could take this program internationally because the need is so great. And there are so many people doing great things out there in the world. We just know that our goal is to see young women who God loves so dearly, to be aligned in their purpose, to be given the permission to express themselves and express their career choices in any way that is, appropriate for them, and to support them in that path. Because ultimately, when these girls are giving their energy to solving the problems that the world faces, everyone benefits from that.
Absolutely. And I just think it's such a powerful program. And it would just be helpful if I'll be praying that it does expand and that you can get what you need, the support that you need for your program. My Sister's Keeper Success Institute, which is really an awesome thing. And I think it would be well received all over our country, because it's such a great program that you do. So tell us real quickly how we can support you.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. One of the things that I would ask, particularly of this audience, is your prayers. We need prayer. I can tell you that I have seen God's providing a sustaining hand in this program from the very inception of it. Doors that have opened that are unexplainable, opportunities that have come, prayers that have been answered. That is first and foremost our request. Certainly, we always look for volunteers, and I know that this is a program that reaches far and wide, but if you live in the Southern California region and are interested, you have a career in STEM, or you are just really passionate about helping young women to become who God created them to be, we certainly always welcome volunteers. And then finally, of course, financial support is always appreciated. You can actually very easily text the word GIVE, GIVE, to the phone number 951-406-4401, and then instructions will follow as to how you may donate to our cause. For those who may be interested in monthly pledges, which are always such a blessing to us because we want to be able to have sustainability in our program, you to the same phone number, 951-406-4401, you text the word pledge. And with pledge, you simply tell us how you would like to break your payment into monthly installments, and everything is set up and automated in that way. So, yes.
Well, thank you for that, because I always like to give the audience a way that they can support you. We at WYTV7 also, we have a global network of people, a couple of million people that watch our broadcast, which is super fantastic. And you never know when someone in your area is going to watch this broadcast and want to hear more about your program in your local area. And we can resource them to you, which we will do. But that's the thing about WYTV7 and Shine Your Light is I love to let my guests shine their light out into the world so we can get things known, and programs are so important. And you've done a beautiful job today of explaining My Sister's Keeper Success Institute. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you giving your time to us today, and I wish you nothing but success, and we will be praying for you.
Thank you so much. much, Nancy.
Thank you, ma'am.
Shine